What is the best thing to say to someone to subtly fuck with their head? I would always ask my old roommate, have you seen our toothbrush? When my dad played tennis in high school, he would ask his competitors right before a match, do you breathe in or out when you serve? I was thinking of taking a picture of my 3-year-old, getting it digitally aged and hanging on a wall in her room. She was going to grow up looking at that picture, and when she gets older, she was going to realize that it was her, and I was going to tell her that she is a time traveler.
What is a secret that you will never tell anyone? One Christmas I was 9 years old and knew that Santa wasn't real, but for my 7-year-old brother the fantasy was very much alive and good. We shared a room and my brother woke up on Christmas morning and looked confused that Santa had not eaten the Kit Kat that had been left out. He went quiet and I could see that he was working the facts through in his head. When he wasn't looking, I ate the Kit Kat and showed him the wrapper and claimed he imagined seeing the wrapper unopened. This was 26 years ago and I have not told him in case he works out Santa is not real. When I was in elementary school, I once lost something, so I asked to go to the Lost and Found. In the Lost and Found room, which was a big storage closet, they also stored the Cokes for the pop machines. I took one. Then, probably 3 to 4 times a week, I'd remember I lost something else and go steal another Coke. I don't know how long I did this for, but I got a lot of free Coke. When I was in 4th grade, I put mustard in one of my friend's burger because he had told me that he hated mustard. Turns out he was actually allergic. He didn't come to school for 3 days and I was scared that I killed him. To this date no one knows that I did it. When I was about 7 years old, my dad took me to Blockbuster and I really had to pee. Blockbuster didn't have a restroom, so I peed in one of the aisles. I'm pretty sure the cameras saw me, but thankfully there was no one near me. When I was in 4th grade, my best friend put mustard in my sandwich. He didn't know I was allergic to it. I almost died and my parents wanted to find out who put the mustard to teach that kid a lesson. I knew it was my best friend, but I never told anyone. Serious, what terrifying confession has someone told you while intoxicated? Freshman year of college, among all the new friends I made that year, there was one guy who was always a goofball. Very laid back, casual, down for whatever. The biggest red flag we got from him was that whenever people were drinking and hanging out, he would always essentially black out. He drank way too much and would kind of spaghetti noodle his way around the party. While also intoxicated, after the party had winded down one night, a few people and I asked him why he always goes so damn hard. While drooping his head a ton, sloshing around, and slurring everything, he told us about how a few months ago, the summer before college started, his best friend called him. They lived in a small town by the beach, and his friend asked him to come meet him to watch the sunset by the water. He biked over there, sat down, and they talked for a while. Everything seemed fine. Then his friend took out a pistol and shot himself in the head, killing himself instantly. Apparently my friend had to call the police while covered in blood, brains, and skull fragments, just totally in shock. And then a few weeks later he went off to college a few states away, still in shock and unable to sleep or focus on anything. He didn't remember telling us that story, and I don't think any of us wanted to bring it up. His drinking habits didn't change until he was about to graduate, by which point he started going to therapy, got a job right after graduation, and seems to be doing better in the years since. Thank God. What's the best joke you know? Guy walks into a bar and says to the bartender, "I'll show you something amazing for a beer." Bartender agrees. Guy pulls out a 10-inch pianist from his pocket and sets him on the bar. He starts playing beautifully. The bartender wild demands, "Where the hell did you find that little man?" Guy says, "I've got a tiny wizard in my other pocket. For another beer you can make a wish." Bartender agrees and says, "Wizard, I'd like $100,000. Suddenly the bar fills with 100,000 ducks. Bartender, confused and angry, says, "What the hell, mate? I didn't want 100,000 ducks. Guy responds, "Oh, you think I wanted a 10-inch pianist?" What are some very obvious signs someone is into you? Looking back on my time in college, I got some pretty clear signs that I completely missed. If a girl invites you back to her dorm because she forgot something and then can't remember what she was going back to get and then sits on her bed and just kind of looks at you, that's a pretty clear sign. I think about that occasionally. I can't believe I missed that one. This female friend of mine used to come over to work during the day. Eventually she asked me if she could stay at my place overnight because she needed to be in the city the next day. I set up the couch for her. I didn't offer my bed, lol, and we both got into our individual sleeping spots. About 10 minutes later she comes to my room and asks if she can sleep in my bed with me because the couch is scratchy. I didn't make a move. These sleepovers continued for another month or so until I finally did, and she was, obviously, very into it and didn't know why I didn't make a move sooner. I'm an idiot. They go out of their own way to be around you, laughing at everything I say. It's how I recognized my GF liked me. I could say virtually anything and I could see her laughing, smiling at you even when there is no reason to smile. A lingering look that stays longer than it's supposed to. What secret codes are all around us that only people in the know recognize? When I worked at a supermarket many years ago, we had code 12, which was called on the speakers if they saw a very attractive person in the store. The code would also say where, so, for example, code 12 bread. 437737 means herpes in online dating. I saw a profile of a girl saying she has 437,737 cats and thought I'm sure that number has some significance. Apparently if a person puts that number in their profile it means they have herpes and they want to let people know without getting embarrassed. The Jeep wave. I rode in a Jeep for the first time a few weeks ago and got waved at a few times before I asked what was going on. When dealing with the Japanese, that will be very difficult means no. In Indonesia, whenever you're dealing with anyone working in the government, police officers, custom officers, airport security, etc., when they start talking about how strict the rules are or how they need to meet some sort of quota, that means they're expecting a big bribe. I tend to play dumb and go, oh, okay then, I guess I'll just have to throw this thing out, go to court, not bother getting this document. It's fun watching them panic and try to find a subtle way of asking for a bribe without saying they want a bribe. When you're on a Windows computer, Alt F4 will unlock the extra core, letting your computer run way faster. What is a fact about the human body that not many people know about? The reason it's so easy to break your collarbone is because it's designed to break. The way it was explained to me is that it's like a circuit breaker. It breaks there to stop the shock of impact getting to your spine. When you get conditioned to physical activity, your circulatory system adapts. More blood, more vessels, more blood cells, but your lungs really don't. This is because no matter how much blood your heart is able to deliver to your lungs, the lungs still have no problem oxygenating it. This is why your oxygen saturation doesn't drop during exercise unless you have a heart defect. Humans have stripes, we just normally can't see them. They're called Blaschko's lines and form along the paths of embryonic cell migration. The stripes are sort of U-shaped down our front, V-shaped on our back, wavy on the head and face, and we have basic simple stripes on our extremities. Your brain regulates how strong your muscles are. If your leg muscles were to contract at full strength, they would snap your femur. It's why people in emergencies on adrenaline can lift cars off children. Your body is capable of great strength, but it could also severely damage you. So your brain keeps you a weak, soft bag of jelly. Your stomach is surrounded by more brain cells, 500 million neurons, than the brain of a cat contains in total. It's your enteric nervous system. It controls digestion, operates autonomously, has its own memory, can handle its own reflexes, it has its own senses even. It's thought to have come about because of the blood-brain barrier and the main brain being locked away in the skull, a spinal column and nerves away from the critical action of nutrition. Every minute you shed over 30,000 dead skin cells off your body. Doctors of Reddit, what's the biggest case of faking it you've ever seen? My cousin got glasses. Her 7-year-old little sister also wanted glasses because she thought it was so cool to wear them, so she started telling her teachers she couldn't read what was on the chalkboard, and she'd squint at home, and go incredibly close to the TV to watch things because she said she couldn't see things clearly. Her parents got worried and took her to the doctor. She read everything wrong on the vision test. Everyone seemed convinced that she needed glasses, but the doctor was a little concerned because the tests indicated she needed really thick glasses, and usually that wasn't the case unless there was a family history of vision issues. Her parents both had 20/20 vision and her sister only had astigmatism. They all realized she was faking it, so the doctor told her parents in front of her that she'd need some pretty intense eye surgery so she'd be able to see without glasses. They even wheeled in a machine to make it convincing to say they could do the surgery right then and there. She freaked out, confessed to faking it all, and started to cry. She got grounded for a while.
Parents of Reddit, what are your I looked away for 1 second stories? I was round at my buddy's place. He had kids about 7 and 5. Both super nice kids, nice family. We were sitting in the garden with a beer. The eldest had a foam-covered baseball bat that he'd been hitting foam balls with. Out of nowhere, he calmly walks up behind his dad and takes a full home run swing at his head. Effing clobbers him. This bat is coated in foam, but it's still wood beneath it, so it's basically mid-level assault, maybe attempted murder. Dazed, the dad turns round to defend himself, at which point the 5-year-old sees his opportunity and grabs the beer from the table and starts chugging it. Not just drinking it, full-on frat boy chugging it out of nowhere. In the 3 seconds it takes me to recover from the shock and reach across the table to stop him, the kids drank about 2/3 of the bottle. Not much for an adult, but a effing skinful for a kid weighing about 1 stone. Within about 3 seconds, we went from nice family barbecue to concussed adult, domestically abused by a psychopathic 7-year-old, and a wasted 5-year-old. Went real dark real quick.
What's a quote that permanently changed the way you look at things? Let go or be dragged. An old Zen proverb I heard at a meditation class really changed the way I let myself worry about things. Do you listen or just wait to speak? You might be the sweetest peach on the tree, but some people just don't like peaches. This helped me get over my lifelong desire to be liked by everyone, and allowed me to focus on becoming someone I actually liked. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not who someone else is today. My therapist once told me that living in the future is anxiety. Living in the past is depression. Only good way is to live in the present moment. Good luck. Long time ago I was meeting 2 women on the sidewalk, and just as we passed each other I heard this one sentence from one of them. You don't notice your progress in life because you are always raising the bar, The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. Don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. This helped a lot with my guilt and burgeoning martyr complex. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it is a quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. What's the biggest plot twist you've seen in real life? During the last year of my grandfather's life he had dementia and was having trouble keeping track of reality. Before he was placed into hospice he kept complaining about a man that was in his house. He would say that he would come around at night and that he was taking his things and using his stuff. Grandma of course kept reassuring him that she was the only one there. His doctor increased his medications because he was losing touch with reality so badly. Fast forward to my grandfather's funeral and a man showed up that wasn't known by more than a few people in the family. Turns out he was an old friend of my grandmother's who showed up to give his support. In a small town like that it wasn't exactly an unusual thing to have random people show up to the funeral home who knew the person at some point. Well, about a year later my grandmother let slip that she is seeing someone, the guy from funeral. At this point nothing too odd. They got to talking at church and we thought it was sweet. Then a bit later sweet innocent old grandma mentions that it's their 3rd anniversary. Grandpa died 2 years prior. This man was the person that Grandpa saw in his house every night. He was the reason that everyone thought Grandpa was going crazy. He was the reason that my grandfather was medicated to the point of being a vegetable for the last horrible year of his life.
Which conspiracy theory is so believable that it might be true? The arms on Tyrannosaurus rex skeletons are backwards. They ought to be rotated 180 degrees. What good are these stubby little arms for? We have found out relatively recently that T-Rex have feathers. It is now an established fact. T-Rex were not covered in scales but in feathers. Like a bird. Take the arms on a T-Rex and flip them around 180 degrees. Now you have wings like an ostrich. Here is an illustration of an ostrich skeleton. See the small arms? Now look at the Tyrannosaurus. We used to think of almost all dinosaurs as lizard-like. In fact the name means terrible lizard. Now we know that many different animals that we think of as dinosaurs are more bird-like than lizard-like. Tyrannosaurus rex had wings. Not big wings to fly with, but wings that were perhaps something like that of an ostrich, cassowary, or emu, although likely much smaller in proportion to their body. Ostriches use their wings in mating rituals, to make themselves appear larger, and to signal and communicate. Perhaps T-Rex used theirs for some similar purpose. They did not have useless stubby little arms.
We hear a lot about toxic masculinity, but what are your favorite examples of positive masculinity? I'm a figure skater. We share the ice with hockey players, and I cannot get over how nice it feels when hockey players get rowdy and bang on the glass and cheer when you're doing something cool, the same way a hockey fan would at an exciting hockey game. It's hilarious but it's also confidence-inducing. When it first happened, I thought they were trolling me. I just rolled my eyes and continued my practice. But when I got off the ice, I was swarmed with questions like, how do you do all that without padding or a helmet? How do you launch yourself into the air like that? Aren't you afraid of falling? Don't you get dizzy spinning that fast? It's wholesome as fuck. They're genuinely intrigued by this sport. A bunch of dudes who make their own sport even more entertaining by beating the shit out of each other have no shame in getting rowdy to hype up their figure skating counterparts. What's your most wholesome secret? When I was a kid I used to always twist the quarter machines on the way into stores just in case. Got lucky a couple of times and a few free toys. Now that I'm grown, if I'm leaving a store with them I like to drop change into them if I have it and leave them half twisted. I secretly drop pennies. For many years, my uncle used to bend down and pick up every penny he came across, which was maddening to my aunt who was worried the neighbors would see him and assume they were poor, needing every penny they could find. They used to tease each other about it. My uncle got cancer and passed away after a very long struggle. After the funeral we were walking to the car and my aunt saw a penny, and said, "Oh, John is thinking of me. He left this penny for me today." So whenever I am around my aunt, I purposely drop pennies on the ground for her to find. I haven't been caught yet, and I hope I never do. My almost 16-year-old thinks he's saving for a car. He's actually saved about $11,000. He doesn't know I'm going to buy him a car and he can use that money for something else. I'm taking my daughters to McDonald's and the movies after school today. They have no idea. They think we're going home to do spring cleaning, which I already did. I can hardly contain myself. I'm so excited.
Men of Reddit who proposed and she said no. What happened afterwards with your life? Oh, I have a story about this. My friend A had been with his girlfriend B for years, so he decided he wanted to propose. What he didn't know is that B was also thinking about proposing to him. A proposed first, and B freaked out because she had already said her proposal and bought a ring, so she said no. Over the next week, B freaked out more and more, and refused to answer A's calls and messages. A then decided to use the money he had saved up to buy a plane ticket to Europe. What was supposed to be a 3-month trip through Western Europe turned out to be a year-long trip around the world. One day, A says that he's coming back and B decides to go and wait for him at the airport and propose to him there. It turns out that while being in Peru, A met a girl and they fell in love almost immediately, and got married in Peru. 5 years later, A and his Peruvian wife are still happily married and recently had a baby, while B hasn't still quite forgiven herself for ruining her relationship with A.